Chapter 5, Part 3 of Bel Ami, or The History of a Scoundrel. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Recording by Martin Geeson. Bel Ami, or The History of a Scoundrel, by Guy de Maupassant. Translator unknown. Chapter 5, The First Intrigue, Part 3. On the 14th of December, he was left without a sou in his pocket. As he had often done before, he did not lunch and spent the afternoon working at the office. At 4 o'clock, he received a telegram from Madame de Marelle saying, "Shall we dine together and afterward have a frolic?" He replied at once, "Impossible to dine." Then he added, "But I will expect you at our apartments at 9 o'clock." Having sent a boy with the note in order to save the money for a telegram, he tried to think of some way by which he could obtain his evening meal. He waited until all of his associates had gone, and when he was alone, he rang for the porter, put his hand in his pocket, and said, "Foucard, I have left my purse at home, and I have to dine at the Luxembourg. Lend me 50 sous to pay for my cab." The man handed him 3 francs and asked, "Is that enough?" "Yes, thank you." Taking the coins, Duroy rushed down the staircase and dined at a cook shop. At 9 o'clock, Madame de Marelle, whom he awaited in the tiny salon, arrived. She wished to take a walk, and he objected. His opposition irritated her. "I shall go alone then. Adieu." Seeing that the situation was becoming grave, he seized her hands and kissed them, saying, "Pardon me, darling. I am nervous and out of sorts this evening. I have been annoyed by business matters." Somewhat appeased, but still vexed, she replied, "That does not concern me. I will not be the butt for your ill humor." He clasped her in his arms and murmured his apologies. Still she persisted in her desire to go out. "I beseech you, remain here by the fire with me. Say yes." "No," she replied, "I will not yield to your caprices." He insisted, "I have a reason, a serious reason. If you will not go with me, I shall go alone. Adieu." She disengaged herself from his embrace and fled to the door. He followed her. "Listen, Clo, my little Clo, listen to me." She shook her head, evaded his caresses, and tried to escape from his encircling arms. "I have a reason." Looking him in the face, she said, "You lie. What is it?" He colored, and in order to avoid a rupture, confessed in accents of despair, "I have no money." She would not believe him until he had turned all his pockets inside out to prove his words. Then she fell upon his breast. "Oh, my poor darling! Had I known! How did it happen?" He invented a touching story to this effect: that his father was in straitened circumstances, that he had given him not only his savings, but had run himself into debt. "I shall have to starve for the next 6 months." "Shall I lend you some?" she whispered. He replied with dignity, "You are very kind, dearest, but do not mention that again. It wounds me." She murmured, "You will never know how much I love you." On taking leave of him, she asked, "Shall we meet again the day after tomorrow?" "Certainly." "At the same time?" "Yes, my darling." They parted. When Duroy opened his bedroom door and fumbled in his vest pocket for a match, he was amazed to find in it a piece of money, a 20-franc piece. At first he wondered by what miracle it had got there. Suddenly it occurred to him that Mme. de Marelle had given him alms. Angry and humiliated, he determined to return it when next they met. The next morning it was late when he awoke. He tried to overcome his hunger. He went out, and as he passed the restaurants, he could scarcely resist their temptations. At noon he said, "Bah, I shall lunch upon Clotilde's 20 francs. That will not hinder me from returning the money tomorrow." He ate his lunch, for which he paid 2 francs 50, and on entering the office of La Vie Francaise, he repaid the porter the 3 francs he had borrowed from him. He worked until 7 o'clock, then he dined, and he continued to draw upon the 20 francs until only 4 francs 20 remained. He decided to say to Mme. de Marelle upon her arrival, "I found the 20-franc piece you slipped into my pocket. I will not return the money today, but I will repay you when we next meet." When Madame came, he dared not broach the delicate subject. They spent the evening together and appointed their next meeting for Wednesday of the following week, for Mme. de Marelle had a number of engagements. Duroy continued to accept money from Clotilde and quieted his conscience by assuring himself, "I will give it back in a lump. It is nothing but borrowed money anyway." So he kept account of all that he received in order to pay it back some day. One evening, Mme. de Marelle said to him, "Would you believe that I have never been to the Folies Bergère? Will you take me there?" He hesitated, fearing a meeting with Rachel. Then he thought, "Bah, I am not married after all. If she should see me, she would take in the situation and not accost me. Moreover, we would have a box." When they entered the hall, it was crowded.